June 17th, 2023. It was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter echoed across the ballroom. Cameras flashed, capturing what looked like the perfect beginning of a forever love story. The bride, Elena, was glowing, her white gown trailing behind her as she spun on the dance floor, laughter bubbling from her lips. And beside her, her new husband Daniel, smiling like the world belonged to him, whispering promises only newlyweds could believe in. The guests cheered. The music swelled. Felt like nothing, absolutely nothing, could ruin that night. But behind all that joy, behind the toasts, the vows, the glittering lights, a secret was waiting. And by morning, blood would stain the white sheets of their honeymoon suite. One of them would never be the same again. It started with a kiss. Not a kiss meant for Elena. Not a kiss from her husband. And not a kiss she was ever supposed to see. A few hours after the wedding, Elena walked slowly down the dim hotel hallway. Her heels dangled from her hand, her heart still fluttering from the magic of the day. Her wedding night, the moment she dreamed of since she was a little girl. She paused outside their suite, smiling, until she heard it. Whispers, breathing, not hers, not his. The kind of breath you only hear in moments that aren't meant for anyone else to witness. She hesitated, her hand trembling as she turned the doorknob. What she saw on the other side, it didn't just break her heart, it shattered her entire reality. Daniel, her husband of just a few hours, wasn't alone. And what he was doing, who he was doing it with, left Elena frozen, breath caught in her throat. What happened next? No one could have seen it coming. By the end of the night, a 911 call would shake the entire city. A crime scene so disturbing, first responders had to ask her to repeat her confession, just to make sure they'd heard her right. Was it a crime of passion? Was it revenge? Or was there something even darker lurking beneath the surface? Something she never even saw coming? Tonight, we uncover the full story behind the wedding night that ended in blood. This is the story of Elena, Daniel, and a betrayal so brutal, it silenced an entire community. Elena believed in fairy tales. She always had. And on that June day, she finally got hers. The ceremony was jaw-dropping, picture perfect, an estate that looked like it belonged in a movie. Towering floral arrangements, golden chandeliers casting soft light across the ballroom. It was the kind of wedding people envy. Daniel stood proudly in front of her. Handsome, confident, successful. At 28, he'd built a career in finance, had a magnetic charm, and the kind of respect most men his age could only dream of. He was everything Elena ever wanted. But there was one person who knew him in a way she never would. Luca, the best man. Luca was striking, 27, tall, charismatic, the kind of man who could walk into any room and own it. He and Daniel had been inseparable for years. Everyone knew that. Everyone admired their bond. But for those who looked closely, something about that bond felt different. The night danced on. Guests laughed. The newlyweds glided across the dance floor. The champagne kept flowing. Everyone toasted to what looked like eternal love. But a few sharp eyes noticed something strange. A glance here, a lingering touch there. The way Daniel's eyes would flick to Luca, just a second too long. Nobody said anything, but in hindsight, maybe they should have. Because by sunrise, the truth would be laid bare, and no one would be able to unsee it. Elena thought she was stepping into forever, but just a few hours later, she'd be looking at her husband like he was a stranger. No, worse than a stranger. She'd be looking at him like he was the man who destroyed her. The wedding reception wound down. The guests filtered out. Elena slipped out of her gown, into a soft silk robe, her heart still warm with the glow of the day. The honeymoon suite was exactly how she'd imagined it. Rose petals, candlelight, a bottle of champagne waiting on ice. But there was one thing missing: Daniel. He had been distant since arriving at the hotel, staring at his phone, pacing, nervous. When she reached for him, he barely reacted. And then, just as she was about to suggest they finally spend their first night together, he kissed her forehead and said he needed a minute alone. He walked out, phone in hand, leaving her standing alone, still in her robe, in their honeymoon suite. The silence was deafening. She wondered, just for a second, if forever was already starting to fall apart. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The champagne on the bedside table lost its chill. Elena reached for her phone. Nothing. No texts. No missed calls. No explanation. Just silence. Something didn't feel right. She tightened her robe, heart pounding now, and stepped into the hallway, bare feet padding softly over the plush carpet. The hotel had gone still. Most guests were already asleep. But down the hall, near the dim glow of an exit sign, she heard it. Muffled voices, low, urgent, and unmistakably his, Daniel. But he wasn't alone. Her chest tightened. Every step toward that sound felt heavier than the last. Her ears pulsed with the sound of her own heartbeat. She turned the corner. Room 214. Luca's room. She paused, hand trembling. Pressing her ear to the door, she heard a gasp, then a moan. Not hers. A laugh, breathy, intimate. And that's when something inside her snapped. She didn't think. She just acted. The door flung open, slamming against the wall. And there they were. Daniel, on his knees. Luca's hands in his hair. Their bodies tangled in a way that erased every illusion, every promise, every vow. All three of them froze, locked in place, trapped in that moment. No one moved. No one breathed. And then, Elena's breath hitched, her eyes wide. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was something else. Something dark. Something ancient. This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation. Her marriage, her love, her entire life had been a lie. And in that moment, Elena made a decision. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to scream. She wasn't going to let him humiliate her and walk away like nothing happened. She turned, walked calmly back down the hall. Each step, steady, silent. By the time she reached the suite, her body was numb. But her mind, razor sharp. She walked straight to the kitchenette, opened the drawer, and there it was. The knife. Cool, sharp, clean. Not for long. She gripped the handle. The weight of it felt right, like it belonged in her hand. She turned back toward the bedroom, and with every step, she felt herself slipping further from who she used to be. She wasn't Elena anymore. She wasn't a bride. She wasn't a woman in love. She was something else now. Something you only become when your heart has been smashed beyond recognition. A shadow. A reckoning. She entered the room. Daniel looked up, his face twisted in confusion. Then horror. "Elena," he started. She didn't let him finish. She lunged. The knife flashed through the air, silver, fast, unforgiving. A scream ripped through the room, but it wasn't hers. Daniel's body folded in on itself. He clutched his groin, blood pouring between his fingers, his mouth open in a silent scream that wouldn't come out. Luca backed away, knocking over a lamp. The shade crashed to the floor, sending shadows dancing along the walls. But Elena didn't flinch. She just stood there, over him, breathing hard, chest rising and falling. Blood splattered across her robe. her hands trembling, but not from fear, from fury, from finality. She didn't feel like herself. She didn't feel anything. The only sound in the room was the soft, steady drip of blood. Drip, drip, drip. Daniel writhed on the floor, hands shaking, eyes pleading. But Elena was already walking away. She set the knife down calmly, picked up the phone, dialed 911. Her voice was low, chillingly calm. "I just cut off my husband's dick," she said. "Come get him before he bleeds out." Even the dispatcher paused. Silence on the other end. Then, "Ma'am, is he still breathing?" She didn't answer. She placed the phone back on the receiver and exhaled. It was done. Daniel had taken something from her. Her trust. Her life. Now, she'd taken something from him. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Closer. Closer. Red and blue lights painted the walls. Luca was gone. Disappeared. Nothing left behind but his footprints in the carpet. The cops burst through the hotel door moments later. Guns drawn. Voices loud. "Step away from the weapon." Elena turned. She looked down at the blood-soaked knife, blinking like she didn't know how it got there. She let it fall to the floor. Hands raised. She didn't resist. Didn't cry. Didn't even speak. They cuffed her. Walked her past stunned hotel guests. And still, she didn't say a word. Just silence. Calm. Like she had accepted what she'd become. Outside, the ambulance peeled off into the night. Sirens blaring. Lights flashing. Inside, EMTs worked frantically to keep Daniel alive. "He's lost too much blood. Pressure's crashing. We need to stabilize him now." His eyes fluttered open, barely. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The pain was beyond words. The betrayal, the violence, too much to process. And the last thing he remembered was her face. Elena, standing over him, blank, empty, holding a knife. Then, darkness. By morning, the headlines had already exploded. Wedding night horror. Bride snaps. Mutilates husband after catching him cheating with best man. Hashtag justice for Daniel. Hashtag Elena the castrator. The courthouse was mobbed when Elena made her first appearance. Shackled. Silent. Stone-faced. Some people called her a monster. Others saw a woman who'd finally broken under the weight of too many lies. The prosecution wasted no time. They painted her as cold, calculated, dangerous. She had time to walk away, they said. Time to breathe. Time to cool off. But she didn't. Instead, she walked back in with a weapon. That wasn't heat of the moment. That was revenge. But Elena's legal team? They had a very different story to tell. Led by Camila Bianca, a sharp defense attorney with a reputation for flipping high-profile cases on their head, Elena's team came out swinging. "This case," Camila began, "isn't about violence. It's about betrayal. A betrayal so brutal, it shattered a woman's reality." And then, she dropped a bombshell. Elena had been seeing a therapist for months leading up to the wedding. She had confided in close friends that something was off about Daniel. He was distant, guarded, always texting, and she'd seen messages between him and Luca, coded, vague, but enough to spark suspicion. She ignored the signs, told herself it was nothing, told herself she was paranoid. But her therapist would later testify, Elena had deep, unresolved wounds. Every man before Daniel had lied to her, cheated, left her in pieces. And now, her new husband, the one she bet everything on, had humiliated her in the worst way imaginable. On her wedding night, in their honeymoon suite, with his best man. It wasn't just cheating, it was annihilation. And according to her defense, That kind of emotional shock could push anyone into a dissociative, uncontrollable state. Temporary insanity. But the prosecution wasn't backing down. Antonio Ferrante, veteran prosecutor, tore into her defense. Temporary insanity? He repeated. No, this was premeditated mutilation. She walked out of that room, retrieved a knife, and went back in with one goal: to destroy him. Then came the forensic evidence. And it didn't help Elena. The wound wasn't random. It was precise, surgical, the kind of injury meant to send a message, to punish, to ruin. And so, after weeks of emotional testimony, expert analysis, and media chaos, the jury deliberated for 3 days, then returned with their verdict. Guilty. Elena was convicted of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. But then, something no one saw coming. The judge, a seasoned, stone-faced jurist known for his harsh sentences, paused. He didn't see Elena as purely evil. He saw something else in her. Something cracked. Something human. And instead of the 15-year sentence prosecutors demanded, he gave her 5 years in prison, eligible for parole in 2. The courtroom gasped. Some were furious, others quietly relieved. Elena didn't flinch. She simply nodded. She expected worse. As the guards led her away, she didn't look back. Not at the judge. Not at the cameras. Not even at Daniel. Daniel, who sat in the back, pale and hollow-eyed, watching the woman who changed his life forever. His body would never fully heal. The surgery failed. The damage permanent. And the emotional scars deeper than anything a scalpel could ever fix. He tried to disappear, changed his name, left the country for a while, but the story followed him. Always. Social media joked about him. Late-night shows mocked him. Some pitied him. Others didn't know what to think. Luca vanished. No statements. No interviews. No closure. Rumor was he moved abroad, started a new life under a different name. But Daniel, he had to live with the reminder every single day. As for Elena, she served her sentence quietly. No interviews, no books, no movie deals. She didn't cash in on her story. She didn't speak. And when she was released on parole just 3 years later, she disappeared. Some say she moved to another state. Others claim she still wears her wedding ring. No one knows for sure, but everyone remembers that night. June 17, 2023. The night that was supposed to be the beginning, but instead became the end. So now we're left asking, was Elena a woman pushed past her breaking point? Or was she something darker? Did she take justice into her own hands? Or go too far? And what about Daniel? He didn't just lose his marriage that night. He lost a part of himself. Forever. Justice, they say, was served. But was it enough? Or was it too much? The truth is, none of us know what we'd do if we were standing in her shoes, in that moment, in that room. But what about you? What would you have done? Would you have walked away? Or would you have picked up that knife? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if this story shook you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't sugarcoat the truth. We tell it raw, unfiltered, exactly how it happened. I'll see you in the next one.